Right. So, 17 global goals that were initiated by the United Nations. They entered into force January 2016, and it's pretty much a 15-year plan for actually the entire human global population to make this world a better place and help to achieve all these 17 goals. The 17 goals actually address the biggest challenges that that the UN thinks that we have on planet. So we should all help to try and achieve the goals and eliminate these problems. So it addresses each and every one of us, the whole society, politicians, governments, the private sector, economies, also non-governmental organizations, and yeah, just simply everyone. So this is what Entrepreneur Social Event is about, to promote the goals and to introduce you guys to beautiful projects that we have that help to make this world a better place. So the project today is a super interesting project because it's pretty comprehensive and complex, and a lot of different types of stakeholders are involved in different organizations. It's about a rainforest protection, an environmental protection project in Kalimantan, the Indonesian part of Borneo. And I actually don't want to tell you too much about it because our speakers will do that themselves. And so we have 3 speakers today. One speaker is actually Mark White. He is the film producer, or he is a film producer, and he produced a series about this environmental protection project in Borneo. And then we also have 2 environmental activists, Kodi and Disrekia. They are both also working on the project and helping to make it happen, and they will tell you what they do in detail themselves. Just one last hint for the event tonight. They will present and talk to you guys for about 20 minutes about their amazing project, and then you guys have 20 minutes to ask them any questions that you have about how they make all this happen and what they work on and whatever comes up to your mind. So please think about cool questions you can ask after 20 minutes presentation, 20 minutes questions and answers. And then for tonight, it's a special event. So we have a bonus session, and we're going to stream 2 of those episodes of the Eco Warriors of Mark's series. So please give a warm welcome to Mark, Kodi, and Disrekia.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Hello. Hello out there. My name is Mark White. I'm the producer of Rise of the Eco Warriors. And this film, I just want to tell you a little bit about some of the background so you can think of some questions. But this film began in 2010, and a group of young people from across the Asia Pacific were convened by a Microsoft Partners in Learning and a man who used to be one of the head of the World Bank. And they brought young people together. They met in Singapore, and they had a deliberative forum about what are the greatest challenges that the world is facing today, and what can young people in particular do about that. And these young people met over a week, and they conducted an online poll, and what came out of it was really interesting because the young people wanted to see something done about deforestation of the rainforest. And in particular, they wanted to do something about the orangutan. These were students mostly from Asia Pacific. And so they had this idea that they would find a group of representatives of this group, and they would go to Borneo and Indonesia, and they would work on a project to save the orangutan and stop deforestation and find solutions to the problem. And then they would report this back to schools all around the world and see how they could participate. So I've been in environmental work for quite some time as an activist, and I'd worked as a producer. And so when I heard about this concept, we were approached by Microsoft came to us and said, would you guys like to make a documentary about this? My partner in this had made a previous film also set in Indonesia called The Burning Season. And has anyone here heard of that film? It was, yep. It was shown on National Geographic, and basically it looked at what was driving the deforestation in Indonesia, and goes into the orangutan center, looks at what is causing the deforestation here in the Indonesia, Malaysia, is mainly for growing a commodity crop called oil palm or palm oil. Who's heard of palm oil here? Raise your hand. Okay, this is a substance that when I first came to Borneo, which was 10 years ago, I had no idea what this even was. But I recall flying into this little town in the highlands of Borneo, middle of nowhere. There weren't even any roads into this village, and I went there for a UNDP conference. And I remember flying over and looking down and seeing what looked like a very green forest below me, but then I noticed, hey, everything is in rows. What's that all about? That's not rainforest that I see in Australia, or not my typical imagine. And then I started, I met there with the people, the local people, and then I heard their stories about what was going on, how they were losing their land, how they were being dispossessed, how their water sources were being polluted, how the orangutan species around them and all the other trees and so much biodiversity. The oldest rainforest in the world, 50% of it was already gone, and I didn't know anything about this. And I came back to where I live in Australia, and I started talking about this issue. And as I talked to people, I could see they didn't have any knowledge of it. But it's in 50% of what we buy in the grocery store. How could this be? So as a filmmaker, this made me very curious. So this got me on this path. And when I was presented with the opportunity to work with the group, Microsoft Partners in Learning, we had access. The young people didn't really know how this was going to come together. And so I started looking at what we could do to also not only document the story, but how we could create a media event around it. And so we actually then, I'd been working in education and building things like games for education, which are involving kids. And so we actually decided the best way to do this is to create a game world, or a game or a competition, and using the strategies of gaming to actually bring people in. So we created a competition to find the people, the young people who would go and represent this big group of people, of students. And so we ran a competition, and we said, if you want to be part of this group that goes to Borneo, you have to make a 2-minute video clip about why you should be the one to go. We said, and not only that, you have to be positive and raise money, not only to get yourself there, because we didn't have the money to pay for them, but also to raise money for a new orangutan center that the scientists that we then brought in and reached out to, Dr. Willie Smits, is a man who has worked in the rainforests of Borneo for over 30 years, not only rescuing the orangutans with his Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation, which is the largest primate NGO in the world. They have over 900 orangutans in various stages of rehabilitation, more than all the zoos in the world. We reached out to him. He agreed. He said, you find me the young people, and we will go and do this project in an area that had no orangutan rehabilitation going on. And we will work there. We'll spend 3 months in the jungle, and you can film that. So we reached out. We had no idea who would respond, but we had an amazing response from all around the world. We had over 236 young people responded, and they submitted their applications. We had an online the voting system. They had to get their friends involved. They had to reach out to the local media. They had to catch our eye. And so from this process of voting, and it went viral. You know, we had almost 500,000 views of these clips. And like, we didn't spend any money on marketing. This was all completely viral, and it spread through the youth groups. And so one of the things that happened, and I won't say too much more because I want you to stick around and watch 2 of our episodes. We made this movie. with these young people, and they're so courageous. 15 of them stepped forward. I wanted to quickly introduce one of them tonight, who was the only Australian female that was selected, Kodi. And we picked these young people not because they had great particular skills, in science, or they were hardcore greenies or anything like that. We picked them because we wanted other people to identify with young people, and we wanted them to see that eco-warrior doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean necessarily that you have to have those skills. Anyone can do this. Anyone can be an eco-warrior, and we have to be. So we picked the 15. We found the project. We found a particular village where Dr. Smits wanted to work with, because this village is in the middle of a beautiful rainforest, in the middle of Borneo, in the heart of Borneo, and this village had defended its rainforest successfully for 20 years. In 1996, the Suharto and one of his crony companies came in, wanted to take their forest. They resisted. They actually blockaded the bulldozers. Unheard of at this time, but they had such a commitment to keeping their forest. And Dr. Smits heard about this. We went to visit these people, and it was like the fountain opened up. They were so desperate to get their story out, and they begged us to tell the story, to be the voice, to show what was going on there. And so one of the people from that village is Disrekia. Disrekia is an amazing activist and advocate for her people, and she has brought so much. She went to learn English in Yogyakarta so she could tell you this story here tonight. And we've been going around Bali doing these screenings, and I think you're going to find what she says is very powerful. So, and just from her perspective of what the Eco Warriors Project has meant. So anyway, we made a feature documentary. We released that in 2014. That's available on YouTube. So if you look Rise of the Eco Warriors on YouTube, you can watch it with Bahasa subtitles even. It's been shown on television here 3 times, national TV, Compass TV. But then we realized in 2015 that we had so much great story that we wanted to make a TV series, because we really wanted to reach out to masses of people. So I went to Singapore. We raised additional money to actually create a TV series which could go around the world. So we're going to show you the two episodes for this. We're going to show you episode 1, which introduces the problem, sets the stage, shows you a little bit about what the Eco Warriors were facing, and we threw these guys right in the deep end. Many of them had never been to outside of their home country. We had a lobbyist from Washington, D.C., who had never done any trekking or anything. And so we took these people, put them in the deep end. Episode 1 shows you a little bit of that story, and it shows you a little bit about the Dayak and their plight. And then we're going to show another episode from later on in the series, which shows actually what the young people actually did. And this is Kodi's team, the education team, and their reactions and their plan to spread the message of the forest is important, and how they got that out throughout the whole of the heart of Borneo. So, it's a very inspiring story, and I really hope you can stick around to watch that episode. But right now, I just want to introduce Disrekia, and she's going to tell you a little bit about her perspective and what's going on in Borneo and why this story is so important. So, Disrekia?
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity given to me. I'm indigenous people from West Borneo, it's called Dayak. I was born in the forest and I grew up in the forest, play with my friends in the jungle. It's like a heaven for us. Like my mom's like to show me to pick up so many kind of vegetable in the forest and also local fruits. And I also after school always together with my friend play in our playgrounds, like climb up the trees, jump from the trees to the river, and everything is less just perfect for us. But then I when I entered high school in the city, I realized that um, I don't want my place to be changed like another forest called oil palm, because it's really, for me, it's really hard thing. I don't want my place to be changed like that, because I love the river, I love the trees, I love the local fruit, I love the local wisdom, I love the culture that we have. If we lose the forest, then we also will lose our culture. That's motivate me to go to school. And one day I pray to God that probably, hopefully, that God will send um, angel to help us. And in 2010, I got message from my brother that there is a project from Dr. Willie Smith about deforestation. So I was really glad. Oh my God! Finally, um, we want to them to like to speak or to bring connection for us, because in my village we have already show the people how to work or live harmony with nature in the right way, not in the wrong way. We have micro hydro, we have clean water. Mining is not allowed because we cannot drink gold. We only need water for our own health. So there's so many things that people try to be commitments in preserving the nature, and then they come to us and make The Rise of Eco-Warriors movies in 2011. Then after I graduated from Yogyakarta, I went back and teaching in middle school in my village. So that's my commitment, to go back to my village. There's always a way out to speak, to work together with the community. And since after this project, this partnership with the nation and the rise of eco warriors, and so many things happen, change. We have Sintang Orangutan Center. It's a forest school for orangutans. The local people donate some area for the orangutan school, and orangutan school also funded by the Rise of the Eco Warriors project. And then after that we have Tengkawang Factory. After Tengkawang Factory, Tengkawang produce better nuts, so it can replace oil palm. But unfortunately, it cannot bear fruit every year, so it's really rare. Tengkawang is big trees, and it grows everywhere in the forest. It's really sustainable. And from Tengkawang, we can also make soap, any kind of cosmetic, and also chocolate or food. And then we have eco trip. So I'm so glad to be a guide there in my village to show the visitors about our environment, our forests, the mystery of honey trees, or the mystery of all the local wisdom, all this, the storytellings to the visitor and also to the kids around. And another things that we have, now we plan to make a school for the local kids. The school that will be beneficial for the kids, so they will learn about their own environment, how to respect their environment and culture, so how to bring it sustainable. So they don't have to go to these cities. Sometimes school, Indonesian school, just makes the kids to be materialistic, because it's only about achieving some things, to be the first. But it's not, the meaning of the school for me is not that. So school is something how to solve the real problem in the real world. And then we have some communities now working, and also ecotourism community, work in a community and small group with the women. And we also collaborate with Ecosia ORG to plant trees. In 2017, we already planted 40 trees, 40,000 trees, including rubber, local fruits and many kind of other local trees for the villagers, and so they will work in their own community between thousand hectare of the rainforest that we have there. So that is the way how we can meet, and we hopefully through this connection we can also find a lot more connection for this beautiful earth. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, thank you for coming. My name is Kodi, and I am one of the eco warriors who was selected to be part of this project. And it's an honor to be here with Disrekia and also Mark. And I'd just like to thank Janie and Ricky for organizing tonight. I wanted to bring this back to the sustainability goals that we saw the video of just before. And actually, it was the first time I'd seen that video, and I think there's a gap between how they present these goals in the video and how it goes down in real life. And it's not always something that looks good on Instagram or in a video to share on social media. It's actually a lot more entangled and messy. And I think this project has been showing me that now for 5+ years. And actually, there's no other way for it to be. So I just wanted to get a bit real about that. And that's in no way its weakness. In fact, it is its strength. And the way that I think we are going to reach these goals is by taking example from nature. And nature is strong when it's diverse and biodiverse, and that's how we have to go about achieving these goals. And that's something that is the strength of this project, is that there is no one answer. I can't tell you how to achieve these goals. I can't tell you how we're going to get there, and no one can. And if they sell you, they can. They're trying to sell you something. So I just wanted to relate that back to this project, because it does have a wide range of people involved, and I think that's what the founders and creators had in mind when they chose these eco warriors. It's like they didn't choose people who were qualified in reforestation, or who had a set of skills that was like, oh yeah, that's obviously the answer to how we're going to fix it. They actually chose people with a wide range of experience, and that coming together was the potential, and that is the power. So I was working with people I wouldn't have chosen to work with, and I'm sure they wouldn't have, many of them wouldn't have chosen to work with me. But it was like, this is what we've got. This is what we've got to work with. All this external funding that was promised is now fallen out. The policy didn't come through. Last minute it all fell to pieces. So what are we going to do now? And that's what this whole series is about. And you will see that in the episode tonight, especially episode number 8. I want to get to questions, but before I do that, I wanted to touch on what Disrekia said about ecosia.org, and that's a search engine which is partnering with small organizations to replant rainforests, basically. As Disrekia said, this year they already planted 40,000 saplings in Borneo, and next year they have a goal to plant 500,000 trees. And that's something you can do to work towards the sustainability goals right now, is change your search engine from whatever you might be using to ecosia.org. And it's really amazing, because the founder of that website went to Borneo this year. So we know the person who went there, went to the same village that we visited, and it's 40,000 trees already in the ground there, or in the nursery. So that's something that everyone watching or sitting here can do today. It has 6 million users now. ecosia.org, ecosia.org. I think we're at time. Should we go to questions? Yeah.
I mean, there's no rush. You can finish your presentation. Please go on.
One of the things is that the young people broke into teams, and so Kodi was the education team, and they set their own goals. We didn't tell them what those goals had to be. They came up with the goals. But education team, we had the animal rehabilitation team, orangutan rehabilitation team who worked with the local people to establish the first forest school in this part of Borneo. And a forest school is a place where orangutans go to who have been in captivity and often in horrendous conditions. And you'll see a little bit of that in episode 1. They need to learn to be living in the forest. If you can't just take them out of the cage and let them go because they will die, they need to be taught. An orangutan stays with the mother for 6 to 8 years before it knows enough to go out into the forest. They're like us, they have to learn. And so, yeah, so they set up the orangutan rehabilitation school. Then we had a team that was working on the reforestation, and they set up the first community nursery with the people, and they started selecting species. And you know, and this is a place where it's hot. It's 40 degrees. It's 100% humidity, and so they're out there working, collecting seeds, trying to start to propagate some of the plants that will enrich the forest for the orangutan food. And then we had another team called the Earth Watchers team, and we actually worked with a company in Amsterdam to create software, which while these guys were in the forest, we had this software which was using satellite information from the European Space Agency flying over our area of Borneo, and we had them actually direct 2 satellites to do that. And they were taking photos every 3 days of the area all around the village, and we had 1,000 schools monitoring that forest and identifying deforestation and then communicating with the people on the ground. And so this idea was actually, it sounds very simple, but it had never been done before. And so our project was awarded something called the Copernicus Award from the European Space Agency. It was for the best idea. So since then, this project has gone on, and Greenpeace, actually we open sourced the software. Greenpeace then took it, and they're now using it in their forest campaigns in Latin America. So, so yeah, 4 teams. They set their goals, and yeah, that's one. Just wanted to tell you that because that kind of makes that was the structure of the team. Want to say something else?
No. May I just tell them that about the orangutans?
Yeah.
From our orangutan school, now there are 3 orangutans that are really to be released next month in the jungle. So they know how to make a nest, to survive longer in the forest. Of course, they're ready.
Okay, over to you with questions. I'm sure people have questions.
Yes. You have a question. Awesome.
Well, this is not a question, this is a statement. I am also a group. I am a group also that is called Kids Cut Palm Oil. And I go to schools with, my mom had the idea of doing this, and I do this with my friends. I go to different schools inside Bali, and I tell them why it's bad, and I tell them to stop using, stop buying these products, and let your mom and dad know. And that's all I want to say.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's awesome. That's really great work that you do. Actually, talking about awareness raising, what do you think, like how important is it to use social media to produce a TV series, to raise awareness, to actually make projects like this that are super complex and yeah, super intense with so many different stakeholders involved work? What do you think?
Totally essential. I mean, we wanted to use the power of the crowd because this is how change happens. And so, yeah, we used YouTube. We created a Facebook page, which was very early, before the film was ever released. We had Facebook. We were crowdsourcing. I mean, Kodi was crowdsourced, and that's pretty cool. So, like, we didn't go out and, you know, have a list of or look at auditions or anything. It was only the YouTube clip and how much interest they could generate in their local campaigns. So we already had like hundreds of thousands of people before we'd ever even filmed any of the movie, and that's incredible. Then we used crowdfunding to actually raise the money to make the movie, and that was cool. And it got me really interested in then crowdfunding as a whole concept. So I actually then set up my own platform called planetfunder.org, and then went out and after every screening that we did in Australia, everyone got a postcard and saying, what are the 5 things that you can do? And we crowdfunded those 5 ideas. And one of them was the school that Disrekia mentioned, and we raised over $20,000 from the audience, crowdfunded. And that school is now underway. They've made a foundation, and this is going to be a green school in the middle of Borneo. And we've already got now schools from Australia and Hong Kong and other places coming to the village to see this. So, and none of this existed before. So, and it was all done with the power of the crowd. So, yeah, social media is so important, and we couldn't have done this without that. And it just, opened up a whole new area as filmmakers that we could start exploring these ideas and concepts, and using the power of the crowd and using the kids out there following in the classroom. Kids like in your group then respond, and they go out and they spread the message. I mean, I can't tell you how many emails and that we've had from school groups and teachers, and when they see the movie they email us and say, I had no idea, but then I watched your movie and I went home and I started looking at the cupboard and looking at the names of the things that are in the product names, ingredient names, and I found all this palm oil. I didn't know I was part of this. I didn't know I was buying this. I was complicit in this. I had no idea. And so kids are doing that, and then the kids go to the parents and tell them. And that's how social media can spread ideas like at the speed of light. And one of the things I also wanted to mention was we came in 2014. We showed at the Green School with Jane Goodall. And we did another screening. Simone, who works still here with Roger Hamilton, organized for us to go to the iLab Vision Villas and do a screening for the group that was going through at that time. And they also were blown away by this whole story, and they decided right there on the spot, what could they do? They said, we'll go out and we'll raise $5,000. And Roger said, if you can do that, I will match that with $5,000. What were you going to do with it? I said, I want to take this message much broader. I want to go to America with this story. And they raised in total $15,000, which we then used. I went to America. I had fantastic meetings with social entrepreneurs there. And as a result of those, that one screening here in Bali, earlier this year on Earth Day, I met someone, and the film ended up being one of the 5 Earth Day featured films this year, and went out all over the world online. The other thing that happened, I was just invited. I met someone there who has now invited me to go to San Francisco in May and to present our project and be part of a brains trust that's formed on the regeneration economy, it's called, this conference. And we're actually going to be working with the Buckminster Fuller Institute and other amazing visionary people to actually take this to the next level and really get these concepts out there, because this is now urgent. Like I say, 50% of the rainforest is gone in Borneo. Palm oil is spreading out its tentacle. It's like an octopus going into the Amazon now basin, going into Africa. Over 300 football fields an hour of rainforest disappearing in Asia. Union of Concerned Scientists has said palm oil is the #1 threat to biodiversity in the world today. So it's urgent that we get this out there. And so as a result of that one screening, I'm now going to get the opportunity to go back to America, and hopefully we can get this on TV and really, get a mass audience in the United States and elsewhere. So crowdfunding.
Sorry, Mark. Actually, since 2012, we found that because I joined Save Borneo with my friends in Yogyakarta, we found that there are only 10% of the rainforest left, 2012, and it's really, you know, something that's really hard thing to know about that. And that's why I think through education and school, like for what I've experienced, I realized about the threat. I experienced it and I was worried, but I didn't stop to fight through my own way and also my families and other families. But how about another villagers around? If the economic situation is really difficult for them, it can be easily, I mean, they can give their land easily without thinking about the futures. And if their area lands also clear up and being destroyed, of course it all affects our area, our land as well. And it's not only about that, it's about, you know, the local people really depend on the forest. We are not smart like you. Maybe we cannot compete with you to work in the, you know, to work in the company or somewhere else, but we will have enough if we have enough food from the forest. And if everyone's make a fool of us, it's really hard thing. Because when the oil palm company try to make a good connection or work together with the local people, they didn't talk about the bad effect of the environment. They only talk about profit. That's the things. I mean, it's really poison. It's really poison in their mind in a very difficult situation and economic in Indonesia. Okay, there's.
Question? Yes, I can go.
So I also have a statement instead of a question. I also work in Borneo, but in a different forest to Disrekia, and I've been working there for the past 3 years. And I work with a lot of Dayak people, and I want to say they're some of the most smart, talented, skilled, brave people I know. So please never say you're not smart. The Dayak people are the fighters. Projects like this are giving people the platform to share their messages. They're not here to replace Dayak people. They're here to put Dayak people at the front, and this is what's happening tonight. So well done, Disrekia.
Thank you.
Lagi question? Oh yeah. Sorry, Ricky, I'm taking over. Excuse me, dog.
Good evening, everybody. My question is, some companies belong to the RSPO, is that right? And I heard that that isn't working, so I just want to know your take on that, really.
Okay.
It's a good question. Maybe can you say what
Sure.
the RSPO stands
Sure.
for?
RSPO is Roundable Sustainable Palm Oil, and yeah, kind of that. We have a conflict in another village called Sungai Buluh, because Sungai Buluh is since they make their own village and they apart from our not belongs to our village anymore, so they have their own community, and then because there's no local elders that really strong to talk about the culture, so they changed their minds to give their lands to the oil palm plantation. And RSPO have some standard, right? And not to make an oil pump close to the water, some certain height and slope, or I think in Sungai Buluh it's really out of standard. I mean, it's something that illegal. Like my nephew Agung, he made some report about that, but still we don't know the response until now. But luckily, because of our president Joko Widodo, he's really powerful to listen about the indigenous right. Also, the plan to extend the oil palm plantations near our village in our area was stopped. Yeah.
I always get asked about sustainable palm oil, and so far it's not prevented 1 hectare of rainforest from being cleared. So how effective is that? Okay, it's a good standard. On paper looks good, but it's on the ground that you have to judge the result. And so far, there is some only very marginal evidence that, okay, when the fires happened in 2015, for example, they didn't burn quite as much in the companies that had signed up to sustainable palm oil standard. But as Disrekia was just saying, we see with our own eyes when we go to the village, this Sungai Bulu, how these are companies that are members of the RSPO who did this. And when the complaint was made and filed, the head of the RSPO was on Twitter saying, "Oh, provide us the evidence." And we said, "Here's the photo. Here is the photo, man." Nothing has happened. There's been no repercussions. They are weak. And so, but I will say one of the things that happened is that when we started this, there was no company out there who was buying palm oil talking about deforestation. They didn't want to know about it. So since then, about 60% of the supply chain is supposedly covered by companies who have said, okay, we're going to take deforestation out of the supply chain. But we're going to do it, in 5 years' time. Or we're going to do it in 2020. 2025. It's all going to be gone. There is no time. So when I go to meet Dayak activists, and they laugh, they're laughing at this idea and crying at the same time because we're so gullible that we will be sucked into this idea that this can be a sustain. How can you have a sustainable palm oil when it is a monoculture grown on peat swamp? It's impossible. That's not sustainable. And besides, we don't need sustainable. Sustainable is such a weak word. We need to actually go into regeneration. And that means bringing back biodiversity. When you go to a palm oil plantation, do you see biodiversity there? Do you see birds? Do you see animals? Do you see orangutans? No, it's a deathly quiet. There is no, that is not sustainable. That's going to last for maybe 20 to 30 years, and then it's finished. And that's exactly what's happened. So, no, it's not sustainable. Willie Smits believes it cannot be made sustainable. They also have to dump huge amounts of chemicals and insecticides and pesticides and fossil fuel fertilizers to make these plants produce. How is that sustainable? So, sorry, I get very upset when people talk about sustainable palm oil because so many companies are using this crutch because they don't want to spend the extra money to actually look at their supply chain and really make it genuinely biodiverse. And that's what we need to see is companies disrupting their supply chain, working with communities, working with products like the Tinkawan, which has got so much potential. And the natural rainforest is actually far more productive and diverse. When you clear rainforest, what you're doing is taking out all the complexity, all the resilience of that forest, and you're making it weak. So, we need companies to be thinking about how to make the forest better, stronger, able to support more life, not just sustaining their own profit. So there's a huge space. This is an entrepreneurs group. There is a huge space here to disrupt the palm oil industry and to bring in new models. And that's what we're doing. The Tinkawan factory, there's a brilliant video called Solutions from the Jungle. Disrekia is in the video. And she's talking about this factory and talking about the Tinkawan and how we can actually make products which live in come from the rainforest, the natural rainforest. And we have all that we need there. So, but we have to change the business way of thinking, that wants simplicity, it wants nice rows of trees, that they can mechanize and industrialize and take the human element out of the forest. And they hardly create any jobs anyway. When you go there, you don't see people working in the forest like you do in a rubber plantation or, you don't see that. They're creating export products that don't benefit the people. And the Dayak people are the ones who have really suffered the most.
And I just want to say before it closes, and while it's still filming, that we have the privilege and the opportunity to be able to speak about these issues and still feel safe. That's not the reality for a lot of Dayak and indigenous people across the world, and especially in Borneo. And I have met people in Borneo, indigenous people in Borneo, who have suffered physical harm for speaking out against this industry. So we have the privilege and the option to engage with it like, oh yeah, I'm really gonna like change the world today, I'm gonna talk about palm oil. Like, we need to really check ourselves and the access that we have to platforms where we can engage with this issue, because it's a huge risk for local people and indigenous people especially to step up and speak out publicly. And we have the responsibility to share that risk. And so we need to use the power and the privilege that we have as we sit here in this beautiful place and stand in solidarity with the people of Borneo and people like Disrekia, who it's the reality for them. Yeah.
Hi, guys. I wanted to say straight off the bat, awesome work that you guys are doing, and thank you so much for doing that. You know, because if it wasn't for real activities exactly like this, there's no hope. It's game over, right? And I know you guys can see it. That's why you're there, spearheading right in the mouth of the lion, as it were, right? You said, I wanted to bring a point up, Mike, you know, to support what you said earlier. You'd thrown out a year saying 2020, 2025 as to that end of the world sort of thing, as in we've got to get on it now. The actual figure that was predicted probably about 20 years ago, which probably some of you might know, was 2016. We said that 2016 is that point of no return if we don't start taking action. Scientists got back together November 2016, and they said we only had 3 years left. That was a year ago, almost this month, right? So we've only got 2 years left, and that's not a Nostradamus prediction. That's a very real thing, right? So this sort of activity is definitely something, and we're all social entrepreneurs here. My organization is ironically called Regenerating Earth, which is right on that cusp of exactly the same type of activity. And we're doing some stuff too. So I definitely want to connect and see how. But it's up to us to not just support projects like this, but it's to actually get right at the tip of that arrow and get involved right now. Because, let me rephrase it for you. If we all get to that point of no return, I spoke at the SB event with Dr. Mohammed Yunus, you know, the social businesses event. They just had that in Dhaka. And I spoke to their film crew about all of that. And I mentioned about this scientist prediction. And like I said, it's a real prediction. And the fact is if we all take our time and don't do something right this second, and I mean business-wise, activity-wise, getting out there and just finding ways to regenerate the planet, or Regeneration Nation, and that means everyone, in 2 years from now, it's too late if we all take action. That's what they said. It's too late, guys, if we don't all start doing something awesome right now. So really mean it when I say absolutely fantastic job that you guys are doing. And in any way that I can support or get out there on the front line with you, I'm there. Thank you very much, guys.
Great. Thanks for this contribution. So before we start the screening, I have another question. What do you think, how many stakeholders and how many different parties from which sectors and industries are involved in like the whole project? Is that, can you, just to get the complexity somehow?
Oh my gosh. It's ranged from everything from Microsoft, one of the world's biggest companies, through to the foundation in Tembak. Dr. Smits has his own organization that's been supported by groups in all over Holland, Luxembourg, Germany, Australia. We're the main supporters in Australia. There have been schools, like dozens of schools involved. I'd say hundreds of schools have been involved, raising money, doing screenings. It's still going on. It sounds big, but to me, I'm with you, because I look at it and go, man, that's not going to be enough, you know. And Microsoft and all its giant bigness, and the corporations and Google, it's still not enough, because there's not enough money going in on the ground to actually even replace what's currently being lost. All right, with reforestation. Reforestation is expensive. Willie Smits, and you may be familiar with Semboja Lestari project, where he took 3,000 hectares of destroyed land and brought it back to a biodiverse forest, but it's still not the original rainforest. Okay, we can never capture that. That's evolved over millions of years, and it costs a lot of money to do it. So, you know, for me, like, yes, it's big. There's a lot of stakeholders that need to be involved. Governments have to be involved. Okay, you know how quickly they move. But they even acknowledged that this is something that they have to do. And I don't know if anyone read The Guardian this week, but there's a fantastic article by George Monbiot called Insectageddon. And what they have done, citizen scientists working in Germany have been out for 20 years looking at insects and their population in Germany. And they found there's been a 75% decline in insects. And at that rate of decline, okay, and now you go to the forests of Borneo, you don't hear birds anymore. We're losing species at a rapid rate, and they're talking about this is the great extinction that we're in, like the equivalent to the Permian extinction, okay, which wiped out 95% of species. So I don't want to belabor the point and make people go away feeling depressed, because we do know what to do about this. It's a matter of the will, and it's a matter of each one of us looking at these sustainable goals and working on them in our businesses, with our families, talking about them, and getting out there and becoming eco-warriors and becoming activists. We have to have that spirit. This is what happened in World War II. When we mobilized our whole society to fight fascism. And men and women fought in the millions, to get this goal, to defeat fascism. This is the same. This is actually bigger than World War II. We are actually in the biggest battle for our lives, because in that article about Insectageddon, Monbiot quotes another scientific study where there's about, at the current rate of soil loss, we have about 60 harvests left, and then it's finished. There won't be any more topsoil. We're all going to grow hydroponics. No. This is crunch time. Who's going to stand up? Who is going to take action? And when young people do take action, adults, it touches the adults, because they're the ones that are going to be dealing with these consequences. And they're going to be seeing the world as it's evolving. And so it's either going to be a great story of regeneration and hope and genesis and new ideas and disruption and new businesses coming out of this. And, that to me is exciting. And I'd rather talk about that, because if you start going down the negative path, people will switch off. They will sit down and they won't do anything, because what is the point of doing anything? And so, yeah, I struggle with this every day, on a lot of levels. But I just also feel that for each individual, we have our own path. We have to make our own choices, and that, I've made a certain choice in my life. I don't have to be doing this, but I made a choice that I would try to do something about it, because I saw with my own eyes, and then I had the experience of meeting people like Disrekia and her tribe, and I just thought, well, what more important things could I be doing? I got a business in Australia, but this to me is like, you can. I hope you can hear my passion in my voice because, you know, I really
Totally.
believe. Yeah, I really. And we are all passionate, and
Yeah,
Kodi.
all three of you.
Yeah, all of us, because and in Disrekia, of course, this is her life, and these companies are like right knocking at the door. Yeah, so you know, the river where we swim and we go visit there, you know, if the palm oil company comes in, that river is going to be gone, and the kids will have nowhere to swim, and nowhere to bathe. So yeah, it's serious for the village, and then from the micro scale up to the macro scale, because what's happening here near the village, that affects the world climate. They've now, when the burning happens of the forest, they've found ashes from the forest, Borneo rainforest, go into the atmosphere and settle on the poles, darkening the ice cap, helping to accelerate the melting of the ice caps. Borneo and the Arctic are connected. Borneo is connected to Australia. Borneo is these rainforests. There's only 3 major rainforests left in the world: Indonesia, the Amazon, and the Congo Basin. That's it. So if we cannot draw a line here in Borneo and Sumatra, what hope is there? You know, so we have to make a stand here. This is D-Day. Yeah. This is Code Red. Pull out all the stops, put your thinking caps on, and please come up and, you know, tell me what you think afterward. And if anyone's got any brilliant ideas, please bring them forward, because it's, you know, every man and woman now is being called to do this. Thank you.
Okay. So we have one last question. Sorry? She already said it?
I want to say something. I think it's really important. We are worried about our forest, but I think one day you will realize that you are worried if it will lose, because we have so many medical plants, so many kind of biodiversity that maybe one day your grandchild will need to have their education to learn about the rainforest plant or everything that really needs for your cure or some things in the futures. So. So it's not only about us, it's about for whole, because, you know, the rainforest is really rich. It will be really cool if we can use it in the right way for our living. Thank you.
Awesome. So I think people seem to be super interested, and we still have a lot of time to answer the last questions after we stream the series, if you don't mind. But just talking about the complexity of the project, one last question, because we addressed the global goals here, and you just mentioned like how many different people and organizations are involved and how many problems, and it seems like the worse it gets, It's like a vicious circle. Sounds very negative, but it is like that, and it's all interrelated. What do you think? Which global goals do you address? Can you quickly?
Yeah, hold on a sec.
Well, he's gone. I'm going to say something.
Please do.
As a younger person, a youth, I speak to like the younger people, especially down the front. It's like I don't really have time for people telling me like, oh, there's only XYZ amount of harvests or XYZ amount of this, or it's declined at a rate of blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, those statistics matter to the old system that like used statistics in order to justify the accumulation of wealth in the first place. So while it's important, we have to actually look beyond that for value. And all of these predictions are based on current trajectories.
Yes.
So just change the current trajectory. Like, it's not that hard. Like, we don't have to believe it. We actually have the power to change it. So I think that's especially important to remember down the front. It's like, get your anarchists on. It's like, let's change that. Let's just like say, okay, that's shit. That would suck. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Like, to me, it's that easy, and it is super negative, and it's totally not empowering, and it doesn't provide the value of our method or our methodology of how we value things in nature, which is way beyond statistics and predictions.
Yep. So the goals, and I think these goals didn't really exist when we started this project. I believe they were finally adopted only a couple of years ago. 2016. They were ratified by, I believe, most of the governments in the world have signed on to these goals. So that's fantastic. That's progress. And I got really interested in the goals earlier this year, and I did some research and was thinking about these things, like what's the interrelationships. And one of the things about the goals, I don't think you can pick out one and just they're targets, but they're all interrelated. And if you work on one goal, you're going to find yourself quickly seeing how that goal is connected to all the other goals. I don't think any one is more key than the other, but they're all. Yeah, we have to advance on all the fronts, all the fronts at one time. And so poverty, how do we address that? Okay, we're creating jobs. There's now jobs in Disrekia's village working with the alternatives to the palm oil. Education, we created a school. They're going to be learning about reforestation. They're going to be out learning real-world skills. Energy. Dr. Smits is the world expert on a plant that's found native to Indonesia called the sugar palm. It is the most energy-rich plant in the world, far outstripping sugarcane. It's completely sustainable. Does not require fertilizer, does not require pesticides, grows on slopes. It can be tapped year-round to create advanced biofuels. Huge opportunity for Indonesia and for any tropical country where this plant can be grown. Work and economic growth. Again, far more jobs in working in this natural rainforest and looking at how products, these are only two products, the tinkawan and the sugar palm. There are thousands waiting to be discovered out there. And some of them have been, and some of them have huge value. But how do we take that and turn it into businesses, micro-businesses, microcredit, the things that entrepreneurs, like in Disrekia's village, what do they need? We should be listening to them. Innovation, infrastructure. Innovation, we need so much of it to actually look at these. You mentioned the medicines. Okay, there are so many things in the rainforest that we could be looking at for the next antibiotics. And antibiotics are almost finished. So we need something to replace that. That's in the rainforest. I guarantee you, it's in the coral reef and the rainforest. Sustainable communities. One of the things that impresses me about Disrekia's village is they're already living sustainably. They're living how we think we should be living. They're not driving, giant cars. They live very low energy, low entropy lifestyle. Responsible, so they're responsible for each other. The kids look after each other. They're not separating off the old people from the young people. All the people living together. We stay in a longhouse when we go there. So we're 30 people 30 families under one roof. That's how the Dayak used to live. They're responsible for each other. They look after each other. Climate action. All this is connected to a lower carbon. Life on land, protecting the forest, the terrestrials, biodiversity, what we're doing with the orangutan. Okay, they're the gardeners of the rainforest. If you take the orangutan as a keystone species out of the rainforest, what happens? It collapses. Suddenly the seed dispersal is not happening anymore. And the orangutan co-evolved with the forest. So you cannot just take something like that out of the system. So life on land, peace and justice. Well, how is it serving justice that these people lose their land? These people go into debt. There's a very strong lack of justice because some people have gotten filthy rich and some people have nothing. So, yeah, partnerships. One of the things that I really believe is that we have to have more partnerships to make this really work, and there has to be business, government, community, education, forgetting about who's doing what and who's going to get their name up in lights. I'm the one that's going to save all this. No, it's got to be a partnership approach, and so I strongly think that that's the key to the whole thing, is forming these really rich partnerships where we're using the strengths of each other to get further faster. So all the goals, and we didn't sit down and think about we have to cover all the goals. It's like this is if you're actually doing this work, you see they are interconnected. So that's what I think.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this wrap up.
I
and
think
for the
maybe
whole
we can talk
presentation.
further afterwards, and I'm happy to stay around and talk with you,
Exactly, that's the
as
plan.
is Kodi and Disrekia. Yeah.
Awesome. So then all the other questions, please save them for later. We will start the screening now and yeah, have fun.
You can watch that for free.
I was just
So.
wondering because I come from Germany and there's a lot of film festivals around about
Yep.
different documentaries and
Yep.
independent film producers.
We had
and
the most awesome festival that we've done in Europe. We had our European premiere was in Switzerland last year, or end of last year, and yeah, they had it was an awesome festival, and yeah, they showed it to in 16 cities simultaneously to young people, and they said that it was the young people were the quietest they ever saw while the movie was playing, and so I thought that was pretty good. So yeah, and then they helped us then, and we worked with the university in Zurich, and the students there translated into German, French, and Italian subtitles. So they just did that off their own bat. So they made CDs, DVDs with the subtitles, you know. So again, we crowdsourced. Or they crowdsourced that. They decided they wanted to do that. So yeah, students did that.
so cool. We have a question over here.
It's Alan again. Mark, what can we all you've got captive audience, you've got people who are doing awesome activities in school, you've got people who are passionate about everything that's going up on stage at the moment. What can we do right now, other than just the great suggestion by Kodi to change our URL, you know?
Search engine, ecosia.org.
What can we do? What's realistic? What can we do to actually see a regeneration of the planet? Especially in your sector over there. What can we do?
I think Kodi, you gave a really good answer. I think the other day. I thought. Well, it was
My answer to that question, drum roll, is only you know. Only you know, Alan. Only you know what you can do. I mean, I know what you mean. And each person has to look at their own capacity to affect the change that they wish to see. So I could tell you, adopt an orangutan. I could tell you, bake some palm oil free cookies and sell them on the street and donate that money to something. Or I could tell you, go to your canteen at school and make sure it's palm oil free. Or I could tell you, go to a politician and get mandatory labeling on palm oil and its products. I could tell you, go to your local member for parliament and get some policy around deforestation. I could tell you, email the RSPO and tell them, only 4% of the world's palm oil is sustainable and it can't even be traced. I could tell you all those things. But, you could use ecosia and Google them. Ecosia them as well. So really, when I finished my involvement in the project, I had to ask myself that question exactly. I said, okay, where do I go from here? I've learned all this. How can I stand in solidarity with Disrekia and the indigenous people and still protect the forest? And my answer, that was my individual response, was that, okay, I have to take people to Borneo. They need to experience this themselves in the flesh and feel it and see it and sweat it. And that's what I've been focusing on as my involvement from there. But honestly, only you know how to answer that. Only you know your skill set and what you enjoy doing and how to be creative. So that's my answer.
Yeah.
Just behind me here from, sorry, your name? Jai. From Jai. A shop local, buy local, right? He just said. Now, so what you're saying is out of all of those initial actions, which, you know, a lot of people are trying to do. They get bored of seeing the Facebook stuff. They take a bit of action, doesn't really get anywhere. You're saying the real shift is to have a journey over to Borneo and see it for themselves.
No.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. I mean, the real shift for me and how I can affect that change in my life with my capacity is to provide that experience. If you are listening and think that that is your way as well, or that's your way in, then yeah, come and talk to me. But what I'm saying is there is no one answer, but that is how it's strong. It's like, for you, it's different. For Janie down the front, living in the US with her background, it's different than Disrekia living in a Dayak village. And it's different to this man whose background I don't know, you know? Only you know the best way that you can engage with this to problem solve.
Cool. There's a question over there.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to quickly follow up on that. I've been reading about sustainability, and I'm actually also setting up something in the sustainability space. And I think the best thing you can do is vote with your wallet. 80% of the foods that we consume are processed foods, and a lot of them contain palm oil. If you want to stop palm plantations and all the negative issues around it, you start going to the right shops, buy the right things, and if 10% of the population does that, we will make companies go out of business. They have just published a report that if you stop buying products for 40 days, the product will no longer be stocked in a supermarket. So if you want to make immediate change in your life, just vote with your wallet and reward companies and businesses that share your values.
Okay. I would like to answer as well, what can you do? For my perspective, it's really simple, but maybe it's hard to do. And it's really slow movement. But you can make a forest like a school for your kids. You can make animals to be a tool for your kids to learn. You can also, you know, there's so many potential, so many elements of earth, water, air, and etc. How to bring the connections, that how to make them aware that the environment is a part of their life. That is really important. So that's my suggestions.
I just wanted to tell quickly a story about one of the young people that he's in the film, but not one of the eco-warriors, but a supporter. We couldn't take him because he was only 14, and when this project was launched, and I remember he kept emailing me, and he was begging me to be part of this, and I said, look, mate, you're 14 years old. We cannot take minors into this jungle. It's too dangerous, and we don't want to take liability. You have to be over 18. Anyway, he was so determined to have an impact in this issue that he set up a website, and you can visit this website. It's called saynotopalmoil.com. We talk about it in the movie. And that website, he was 14 when he set that up. And it now gets, it was getting 1 million visitors a year to his website as a 14-year-old. And there's all kinds of information about what you can do in the palm oil as a product and information. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, this is what he could do because he was a young geek who had web skills and a passion to get the information. And so he started from, just like Kodi said, with the education team, start with what you have. What can you do? And only you can answer that question. For him, it was like, and eventually he came to Borneo. He was so determined, he got a guardian to bring him, and he ended up being in the film because he was so determined that he was going to come. And he's since gone on to do amazing things. He was Young Australian of the Year for Victoria a couple of years ago. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be Prime Minister of Australia one day because he has that determination. And he looked at what he could do, and he just did it. You know, he didn't wait for anyone to give him permission. So, yeah, I think we want some easy recipe and I love what you said about the consumer power. Start a consumer movement. Start something in your local. In Byron Bay, where I live, sometimes we have activists and they go and picket outside the front of the supermarket. You know, I tell you, that gets attention. Okay, these are micro actions, but they have macro impacts. And the more people who do them and take on their responsibility in their local area, the more impact we're all going to have. And then we connect each other on Facebook and we share the messages, and we can have we are already having a massive impact. The government has had to respond here. President Jokowi has now extended the moratorium, forest clearing moratorium. There's a ban on peatland development. None of this would be possible without all these individual actions, these droplets, making a river of change. And that's how social change always works. So, you know, Alan, you've got skills in eco restoration, and you know, I'm sure that there's lots of things that you can bring to the table and your contacts, and you know, I'm sure that, you know, we're going to have an interesting conversation because, you know, we all are bringing something unique and, you know, something powerful to the table. And I don't care who you are. If you're a mother, you know, just you can educate your children, and those children will go out and change the world. So we all have the power.
Hi. Oh, hi. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your time and space with us. I really appreciate it, and thank you for getting the message across. So I actually work with conservation in India, and the biggest threat that we face is militarization, or armed conflict, as they call it, right? And so that, combined with the fact that what the government is doing right now or wasn't doing back when this project was happening, I just wanted to know a little bit more about your experiences with armed conflict while doing this Borneo, project.
You mean the conflict between the local people with the company?
And the government also, especially it showed in like the second episode where these officials actually just came and stopped whatever education programming was going on. Yeah. And that is probably just the tip of the iceberg, right? Because I have had like innumerable experiences where we're actually like at gunpoint trying to stop education. Like I've had those experiences. So I just wanted to know, like, how have you dealt with it, or how do you continue dealing with it with the government and also with the opposition from the locals as well?
Okay, it's a good question, but it's hard to answer. Yeah, I may say that the government in my area is really corrupted. And so many levels, they're so corrupted. And if we talk about the local rights, the indigenous people right, and we have, if they have conflict with the oil palm company, because we don't have any, just another village, it's really difficult to get to the point, you know. There's so many certain rule and systems that the local people have to do. They make it, the rule is really complex for the local people because they don't really know how the system works. But the government sometimes make it like confusing. And then it's gonna take a long time, long time to you know, to resolve the problems. That's why sometimes we like, what can we do? We try like the local people trying to tell them, this is our land. We make a commitment. You make a promise, but then none of the promise are compromised. How can they make us like this? But still, it didn't really work. But we have like a patience, like we have to get close to the government to talk more about our rights. And some of the villagers are then can be also a victim, because they also, when they burns the office and etc., they will become being blamed by acts that way. So they make it so complicated. It should be the local people didn't cause something, but in the end, there will be like someone's that makes violence. It's really hard actually. But then if we have connections, we have like a strong people, very influenced people, the people that really know about the law, how the system works, then it will be really easy to talk to the police and also to talk to the government about that. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, we have another question here.
It's not a question, it's a offer. Because thank you very much for the movie. It's just stimulating my awareness about what happened in Borneo, and I have an offer for everyone in the front of us. I came from Jogja, and I think that this is very important for this movie to be bring into Jogjakarta, where all the students coming from all over Indonesia mostly study there, and some, like most of the students, also coming from Borneo, which is deforestation for them. It's something that not very common for them to understand, and this kind of things movie, it's kind of has to be bring to them to raising their awareness, because they are the one who will be graduated soon and will going back to their area, and they just don't know what to do with their area, and that kind of prevention that we can do. And I offer my energy and self to organizing. If you are planning to go to Jogja, I was living there for 5 years, so I have a very good connections with some of the university and schools that can help to bring this awareness go back there. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will say, fantastic. And I actually met the Sultan of Jogjakarta
Oh, that's great.
early in this project. Now, he's a great conservationist.
Yeah, Sultan.
Yeah, the Sultan. I met
never
the
met
Sultan's daughter. And, there's orangutan center just outside Jogjakarta.
Yeah.
I've been there. And, and we originally had this vision. Yeah, Jogjakarta was...
Student city.
Yeah, it was going to be it's a student city. It's a city of learning and culture, and but we've never done a screening in Jogjakarta, and let's do it. Let's do it, and let's get the Sultan there. Let's get the Sultan. The Sultan did a webinar actually with students. The Microsoft Partners in Learning did a webinar. We had 30,000 students around the world, and the Sultan read out a message that Willie wrote for him, and welcoming us. So I think, why don't we do it? Because I think the Sultan would support that.
Right.
And if you get the Sultan on board, in Jogjakarta, you've pretty much... Let's do it in the palace. Let's do it. Let's put on a screening in the Sultan's palace in Jogjakarta.
Woo!
And we'll get the Sultan there, the Sultan's daughter. Willie will, if we can get that, Willie will definitely be there, I guarantee you. Disrekia will come, and she can tell. We can do exactly what we've done in Jogjakarta. I will come up for that, for sure.
Awesome. Deal. So next question.
Probably this is not a question, but my personal statement, a brief statement of mine. So my name is Henry, and I am a college student in Bali. So personally, I do believe if to create a better future, it's good and it's totally needed if to create a technical action like you do, guys, your movement. But this is my personal opinion that to create a better future, political will is needed, completely needed. Not just about deforestation, but health, economic. And the problem in Indonesia now is good corporate governance. Regarding the previous question, how political works in Indonesia, how the government reaction about this. So this is a big deal in Indonesia. I think political will, it is the strategic thing, strategic way to create a better future. That's all.
Yeah, thank you. I'm totally with you on that, and it's a problem around the world. Where I grew up, the United States, look what's happening. You know, we've just now sacked every scientist in the EPA, and there's a bill I read today in front of the Congress to disband the Environmental Protection Agency. Okay, so we've got major problems with our governments. In Australia is the same. We're just as corrupt in Australia as Indonesia. It's maybe not as visible, but I tell you, it's there. And so we've got a major crisis of democracy that's happening right now in all the countries. So what's the answer to that?
What's the answer? Well, I think if we are talking about Indonesian politics, then it needs to be a conversation for Indonesians, because we don't have we don't have that power. It's also illegal for foreigners to be political, and I think that's a conversation that needs to happen with people who live here and who understand the culture and who grew up here. So it's tough. Every country or nation needs to have it as well.
Yeah, actually, I would like to answer. We are trying to get that partnership even with the governments, with the companies, or with the people, and with education, some fields, and so many things. But if we talk about the government, it's some things that really, really sensitive and really, I don't understand how it works. But yeah, exactly. Um, like sometimes if we come to for me, it should be local. I mean, like the government should be local, so he or she will understand later to fight for his own people. But still, to be an Indonesian, you know how it works. If we speak about needs, it's really, really difficult because Borneo is become like a source of business for a collaboration between the government and the company. It's really difficult to talk about it. But if you would like to help us, please give the local people right. We make this one. We want to fight for our traditional land, and we need acknowledgement from our bupati or government. And we finish all of the data, all of the document of all of and it's already on the table. But until right now, we haven't got any signature yet. And they said one of the file was gone, and you said should make it again. It's really complicated to make a map or to. It is something that, and then they will make the decision.
Yeah, I think the government, I know that Disrekia's nephew, and he coordinated a whole lot of work with Dr. Smits and the villages all around the mountain. Yep, Pak Peter Harman. They did all this work, made an application to the government in West Kalimantan. And last time I was there, Agung told me that they put the application in and they heard nothing. And then finally they kept asking, and then Agung was told, "Oh, we lost the application." Okay, so that is so difficult and so frustrating. They spent years on this, working on this, and they need this customary title. And the law says that it's theirs because there was a Supreme Court ruling here a few years back, which said the government acted illegally when it declared that all tribal land was government land. That's actually was illegal. And so there's been a very slow process now, and they've, I think, recently given back the first, what we call in Australia, native title. That's only been very recent that I think 6 tribes got some land back. So, you know, that needs to happen here, and that will secure that forest because they don't want that forest gone. So they need the legal right and the land rights to defend it.
One more question?
Hi, I'm Phil from the UK, and I'm interested about the young man here who says, you know, it's a political solution. You know, the UK has been a democracy for many, many years, but I think increasingly my own personal opinion would be it's not necessarily government that can do anything about this, because government just consists of individuals with their own agenda. And I think they go into government to start with a good agenda and some really important ideas, but then they realise that if they speak out, they might lose their seat. And suddenly it becomes a sort of self-interested organisation. I'm seeing tonight, you know, the idea of individuals taking responsibility because they're passionate about it, I think is a more powerful movement than anything else on earth. And I think it's interesting, I'm part of the entrepreneur movement here in the Genius Cafe, in the Genius U, and I'm seeing so many passionate people who are not entrepreneurs in the traditional sense of let's make loads of money, but they're thinking we have got to do good, we have got to make a difference in the world, and we have a responsibility because of our position and our network that we can do it. And I've seen so many inspiring entrepreneurs, including Roger himself, you know, doing some amazing stuff, and most importantly, inspiring other people to say, you can step up and you must step up. It's your responsibility. And I think that is, again, more powerful because it's an individual saying, you know, I'm not going to wait for the government to make a decision. I'm not going to wait for anybody to make a decision. I'm going to just go straight out there, get with a group of people who are just as inspired as me, and we're going to make a difference.
Totally agree with that.
Totally agree.
But yeah, one of the things I just wanted to say that we filmed for 100 days. And why did we pick 100 days? Does that 100 days resonate at all? Because Kathy Hinkle, the director, came up with this idea that it should be 100 days because in the United States, the success of a presidency is measured on the first 100 days in office. And what we wanted to do was show what can young people do, and then show and contrast that with this idea of their agency versus and their ability to get something done. Even though they were young people with almost no resources, they were still able to do stuff. And versus the power and the privileged and how we measure them and what they achieve. So we wanted to show young people can do some amazing things. It could be amazing ripples from that 100 days. And it has nothing to do with being in office or getting power or government. It's about these young people working together, collaborating, using the social media, using their links and what's already out there that they already have. We don't need to wait for that. Anyone can do that. So the power of the social entrepreneur, I'm totally with you there. And there's been a huge rise of, things like in America we have B corporations. Have you heard of the B corporation? They are now legal structures which allows companies to not just prioritize the shareholder value, which used to be a legal requirement. You had to support the shareholder value first. Now the B corporation can legally put in its constitution that it can serve other interests. So it can serve a humanitarian purpose. It can serve a social purpose, and that is its legal responsibility. So big change afoot, It's post-capitalism because it's not only about extracting value, it's about delivering more than what it extracts. And that's the concept of the social enterprise. And that's powerful because I do believe that, yeah, business can transform the situation. It's needed. We need the power of the business. You know, business moves fast. Business responds to signals much faster than government. You know, government's very slow, and it's easy to capture the government too. Look here. Look in Australia, where we have the Adani coal mine. World's biggest coal mine is being built in Australia, and it's so easy for these people to capture the government because they know how to push the levers, and they know that every 3 years, same in Indonesia, the Bupati has to run for office. Where does he get the money to campaign? He gets it from the palm oil companies. They know how to capture these people. So government, easy to capture. Business obeys a different set of rules. And if you can mess with that DNA, you know, and change it up, and the social entrepreneur can do that, but not going totally outside the system and like just as a revolutionary outside everything, but creating value, you know, and using the power of business to innovate and to be disruptive. That's what entrepreneurs are good at. So, and we're seeing, you know, I have a friend in America who started one of the biggest conferences in this space called Social Capital Markets, SOCAP Network. And I went to the first event, and 10 years ago, it was me and about 600 people. And they just had it 2 weeks ago. They had it in San Francisco. He had 3,000 people coming from all around the world to talk about this, how capital, which is what we need to actually do these things and reforest and save we need capital. So how can we unlock that capital that's just sitting there waiting to do something useful, not build the Adani coal mine with it, but to restore the forest and to restore the coral reefs and the oceans. And, you know, business can unlock that. And it's our responsibility as entrepreneurs to figure out how to do that and to make it viable and sustainable and profitable. If we can get this social entrepreneur, I think it is a revolution, but it's not like a political thing. It's like this is happening. It's working on a much deeper level.
Great.
End of my rant
Yeah.
about social enterprise.
Awesome. No, I actually totally agree with you. I also have a sort of a sustainable for-profit approach because I think the economy is so powerful, and if we can actually manage to change our economy towards away from a purely capitalistic, greedy economy, conventional stuff, more towards a sustainable economy, then we can actually have a big impact and change the world. But it's actually about each and every one of us, as you said, about the consumers, to put pressure on them, not only on politicians, but also on the economy, change our own behavior, raise awareness for projects like yours,
Exactly.
and educate our children. And it's all very interrelated, but then slowly, step by step, I hope, and I guess that
I just
we
talked
have a chance
talked to the project manager of the Tinkoan factory, and they're now working with Lush, who is buying this oil now. And they're going to be telling this story and taking it to the world through their products. Lush Germany, Lush Japan, Lush UK. They are very keen. They love this. And they are going to help us to disrupt palm oil industry by showing, hey, this is an alternative.
Yeah, that's great. And this is why social media can be so powerful and useful nowadays also. And yeah, great. So I think one thing the project showed is that the things get very complex and it's all interrelated, like politics, economy, society, each and every one of us. This is why we have the global goals, to raise awareness for all the projects that we have to tackle in the world. And I think this was a wonderful project example. Thank you guys so much for coming. I think you're doing an amazing job. There was so much emotion behind. It's so real. I could really feel it, and I guess you guys saw it as well. I mean, it's so real, it's so amazing, and a lot of respect from my side. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for providing the forum, and yeah, it was a great discussion, and yeah, really pleased to be here and to show you guys what we're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for give me a chance to speak.
Of course.
Thanks, Ricky, and thanks, Janie, for managing this location, and thank you for coming and staying right to the end. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Jane, so much for organizing all this from your guys' side, and thank you guys for all your contributions. Thank you. Oh, and in case you want to connect and work on something great together, please use our blank business cards and use this space as a networking